this is one of the things I have discovered in my own experience, and I teach the people who are ready for that is that what seems chaotic at one level of consciousness is order at another level of consciousness. Similar to what I was saying before, what seems like a paradox at one level of consciousness, what seems completely incompatible is one energy at another level of consciousness. What we see as evil and good in this reality is materializing from one energy at a higher dimension. It's just very difficult to imagine that that could be true. But when you are at that level where you can see the the source of that energy, you start realizing why it has this appearance at different levels of consciousness. So I do call them higher and lower because that is the terminology a lot of people are used to. But the way I see it is a spectrum of consciousness. It's all connected, and we are not at a higher level or a lower level. We are the spectrum, and we may be conscious of only one slice of the spectrum, but that doesn't mean that we are not the whole spectrum. And for me, the development of consciousness is realizing you are the spectrum and to be able to be conscious of many slices of the spectrum at the same time, or to become conscious of the whole spectrum at once, which for most people will be too overwhelming, but it is an experience that some people can have. So this is consciousness development, is working within each slice and working on the whole spectrum. So we have to develop each slice because each slice has more capacity. At the same time, we have to remember that there is a whole spectrum here. And for me, that spectrum is pretty infinite. I don't know if there are limits on either side of the spectrum. But even if the spectrum is limited, it is so wide that one lifetime is way too little to deal with the whole spectrum, even if there is a completion there. So within one lifetime, there is endless work in consciousness development. There's always more. So each of these slices along the spectrum is a level of consciousness or a state of consciousness, and each of them can be developed. And some of the most basic labels that I use to create distinct slices are, the first is ground zero, which is a healthy normal, which is something that is lacking from most people's life. What they consider to be normal is very toxic, is very unhealthy. So the first slice is a healthy normal. The second level or the second slice is what I call self-remembering, which is to not be robotic. That's the most simple way of describing it. Another slice is objective self-perception, where you can see yourself objectively, not from within yourself, but from outside yourself. And in that, you can start redefining yourself. The next slice is objective perception of the world, of the universe, to be able to see what is happening in the world. And the last slice is the beyond, and beyond the beyond, which is basically infinite, where you start seeing everything merge, where everything becomes one, where all the paradoxes and polarities are one energy. Well, they're not one energy, but they are different energies within this portion of consciousness. And to help people develop consciousness in these slices, in these levels, I use the four methods that I described, which is study of self, unschooling the unconscious, consciousness nomadism, and the yoga beyond. And I use a lot of modalities. My modalities are not fixed. I use what applies to a certain person. And if I need to come up with something new, I come up with something new. That I don't have degrees, but I do have a lot of experience in human psychology, philosophy, energy work, shamanism, working with ayahuasca, which is a sacred plant, working in groups, working with individuals, facilitating retreats. I come from a background of software development and cybersecurity, which helps me tremendously in the way I see the world and how all of that relates to consciousness. So I use that a lot in my work, in my understanding of the world, and a lot of other things which I have learned along the way. I use what is needed. I work with what I work with the person. In all of this, whether it is psychology, mysticism, shamanism, whatever you want to call it, there's one more thing I work with, and that is you. And you are the most important ingredient in all of this. I work with you. I work to help you find what works for you and to help you with what you need and what you want. So everything is in my work is centered around you. I will use whatever tools are necessary. I will apply whatever seems like the right thing for the particular moment, but it's all about you. Until it's not. And then we can go beyond. There's always more. And that is for me a truly infinite experience. Someone who talks about enlightenment as a destination, as a place where things are complete, has not understood anything about enlightenment. They have tried to capture it in a box, they have tried to limit it, they have tried to rationalize it. For me, enlightenment is just a step, it's just a realization about infinity. And then is the work of being and becoming infinite, which is literally infinite.
I was just remembering when, like, how I used to think at the beginning of joining the group about always trying to gauge like where I am in terms of like how much better am I getting, or am I any like you know, we always talk about the mountain and like how far up the mountain am I? Or how far up the mountain are you in relation to me, so I can understand where I am, all of that sort of nonsense. And then um how wonderful it is to let go a little bit of that, um and to start thinking like there is no top. I'll never reach the top, and it's not really.
Even if there is a top, the thing is, why do we consider that to be the end? Mountains have peaks, but who
Mm.
says that is the end of the journey? Mountains also have caves. What is the experience of being a mountain? What is the experience of becoming a mountain range? What is the experience of being a valley? All of that. It's like, why do we always fix this one goal, one destination, and think that is it? If I get there, I will get what I need.
Yeah, that's so brilliant. You're right, like when you said the caves bit,
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, why don't I ever want to do the caves?
Mhm.
That's such a good point. And then, like you said, the experience of becoming the thing, which just isn't even on my radar. Like it's just,
It is a protective mechanism because if you have to think at that scope, that level, it's too overwhelming. So when you are at certain levels of consciousness, your only focus is on getting to that destination.